As I was preparing for this eulogy or these words of remembrance, I was thinking that I'll be the last to say, but since I'm the first, then I'll be only speaking for a few words about the late Mrs. Madeline Mahipos Jumawan. As far as my memory can recall, I first heard of her together with the Reverend Mediador Jumawan. It was when I was still in the seminary, long time ago in the 80s, and Reverend Didi, the way I knew it, he was the chaplain of Brokenshire Memorial Hospital in Davao City, Philippines. But they don't know me yet. The next time my acquaintance with them increased was during the Suliman convocation in Dumaguete City. I was already a pastor during that time, and Reverend Didi was an associate minister at the City Church, United Church of Christ in the Philippines. But I know they or she, Mrs. Jumawan, don't know me yet. Years rolled by, and unexpectedly, God sent us here in the United States, in the state of Hawaii, and for the first time of all the places in the world, we met each other at the Synod 2003 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I still have a photo of her with Reverend Didi. Of course, where Madeline is, there also the Reverend. That means they're very inseparable. As my ministry here in the Honolulu Cosmopolitan Church continues on, I was excited one day when I heard that the couple is going back to Honolulu. But this time, Mrs. Madeline Jumawan will be in a recovery process after that surgery I heard of breast cancer. But things went smoothly. She still tried her very best to share her talent that for the first time we were able to visit Molokai because our singing group led by Mrs. Jumawan attended the installation of the Reverend Fe Ayap, who is another Filipino pastor from Michigan who happens to be their close friend, a classmate of Reverend Jumawan, and a co-worker, although she works in a Presbyterian church in Michigan, and was called to pastor the Hawaiian churches in Molokai Island. They were in Molokai Island, Mrs. Jumawan and Reverend Didi. Mrs. Jumawan strived hard, every effort, the way I see it, to still connect to churches and to her former endeavors, like going with us in the Filipino Christian Ministers Spouses Fellowship at Popokea in North Shore. They're also active in Hawaii Council of Filipino Ministries, in our rallies, and in some gathering. And we know that Mrs. Jumawan also reactivated herself by being the secretary of the Hawaii Pacific Asian Hawaii Islander Asian and American Ministries, as if she didn't waste time babysitting her disease, but exhausted all she can do for the rest of her life. She even volunteered to assist our choir, knowing that we are limited with music abilities, and she even spoke once in our pulpit during the Mother's Sunday. But a second wave of her trial struck when she was diagnosed again with another cancer in the bottom part of her body, which was accordingly at advanced stage. I can't imagine how they would brave the storm, for to me this is somewhat a spiritual hurricane already. But I just appreciate the faith of Lynn and Didi for they have braced already themselves in God's grace and anchored their lives to God, especially Mrs. Jumawan, in God's holy purpose and master plan. Now that the final curtain has already been folded, she gracefully embraced death on that peaceful morning on the 17th of February. We were there 2 hours later after her death, and still we saw her smile as if she's telling God, and I'll be quoting Thomas A. Dorsey's hymn, "Precious Lord, take my hands, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, take my hand." To Ma'am Madeline, the way I call her, we will miss you, but your legacy and influence will live on forever, not only for us, but for the generations who will follow us. In our own language, padayon ngadto sa kahimayaan. Hallelujah.
Today we are celebrating Lynn's life and the precious memories he has left with us. I first met Lynn in 1993 when she arrived with Micah to join with Didi, who was already here. The meeting was very brief, but I was impressed with this beautiful, stately bearing woman who thus became our close friend for 16 years. Lynn loved to play Scrabble, and she plays well, and she plays to win. We played everywhere, and mostly at my home every Sunday for about 4 years, I think they were in Eva. We even played in public parks. When we went to, 4th of July celebration to watch the fireworks. But and I have yet to find another good Scrabble player since her. Lynn was a very prayerful woman who trusted the Lord unquestionably. One incident in 1980, Didi was diagnosed with thyroid cancer and on his way to Manila for treatment. There she was left in Davao to care for the family, to care and worry for the family, and with the financial burden in mind. And then, while she was already overwhelmed with that, Mark was bitten with a dog. And so she said, "Lord, I'm already overloaded. If you can spare me another one, if you're going to give me another more problem, I will break down." But then she already, at the same breath, she also said, "Lord, I trust that you will get me out of this." Lynn was born into the family that loved the Lord. Her grandfather, a new convert, ran a little store. And from that store, he gathered friends, which later became a congregation, and the place to which they worship was eventually donated for a church. Lynn loved music, all kinds of music, jazz, country, Filipino love songs, but most of Ancondiman, but best of all, she loved sacred music. She loved directing choirs. She does not audition her choir members. She doesn't turn anybody out, even a non-musician. She could turn a musician out of a monotone or the out of tune. In times when we could not have an accompanist, she would sometimes volunteer Juji to accompany us for cantatas like that. This is the greatest legacy we have from her music and Juji.